given the fact that the other hearings have been dispensed with, we can proceed. I think we're all aware of the fact that this is a very complex case, and that it's going to require a lot of work on the part of everybody involved to come to a fair and equitable decision that is clear to everyone, whatever the decision may be. And so I know that members of the board have some questions. We asked you several questions last time. And so how would you like to proceed based on what you know, and then we'll find out if that's what we'd like to know. Bobby?
We have a little order in your table of contents, in your new notebook.
Oh, thank you.
Starting with 10, your old notebook ended with 9.
Oh, I wondered why we started with 10.
See? You haven't read the old notebook.
I did, it didn't say 10, it didn't say to be continued, madam.
Oh, by the way, for the record, Bobby, since you weren't here, he has been appointed, Mr. Woodard has been appointed as the alternate to sit on this hearing at this time.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I have asked our recorder to be fairly meticulous in terms of who says what and when.
That's helpful.
But you are
I appreciate it.
recording that.
Yes.
And I would like to know if it comes to the question of whether we need to confirm at a later date who said what, whether the video recordings will be available to all parties.
Absolutely.
Wonderful, thank you very
And
much.
if we do end up transcribing, you'll get copies.
Good,
So-
thank you very much.
Yep. The table of contents gave us an order that we thought was logical and also hits your questions that we took down from the last meeting.
Mhm.
So that's how we plan to proceed. Some of the technical things come at number 13. We're addressing how the project is going to operate, our history of the rezoning attempts, the various ones
Yes.
that were attempted, and we have just a little bit of a review historically of some research we did in the town records. Then we get to Brian with the plans, the traffic issues being addressed, and then I get to wrap up with some fiscal impact data and some legal stuff that is responsive, I think.
And Bobby, these are the 4 cases that you mentioned in the handout from the last time.
3 of the 4.
3 of the 4.
What I have in here are 3 that deal with multifamily development alone. Last time,
You had rain court in that.
Rancourt's out because that was,
That was the variance for the stable.
right.
Yeah.
Rancourt was the variance for the stable, wasn't exactly the same.
Right,
Multifamily
but it
stuff,
was in
right.
fact relevant.
Yes, because of the,
Okay.
and I think there's another one out there, Milwaukee Glen, that's relevant
Yeah.
to standards, but not to multifamily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we have one attorney on the board.
Excellent.
Hmm?
Or maybe my condolences.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and with that, Bill.
So, are you comfortable with our proceeding on that?
Yes, we are, sir.
Okay. My name is Bill Waste, I live on Washburn Hill Road. And as part of an introduction is a way to hopefully bring forth from the first meeting. The opportunity, I'm not using, this is ahead of some of the technical stuff and the things that are on slides. But as I have been a witness to the last meeting, to the presentation to the planning board before, and to other presentations as this project has gone back in time, one of the things that has struck me is that there has been some statements made on the part of people that are either misinterpretations or based on or missing information, and that really there has not been a point to try to set those straight or fill in the gaps of the records. And so between last meeting and this, I did some research specifically to try to see if we could determine some of the facts and respond to some of the statements that have been made. And so with your indulgence, I will cover a few of those that have been mentioned, were mentioned at the prior meetings as quickly as I could. For example, one of the statements that was made in taking a look at this project and seeing that it was proposing 36 units was that it was greedy. Again, the history is that there have been smaller numbers of units proposed, and that's escalated over time. And my comment in regards to that is, I don't think that there is any statement that better illustrates the difference in the way this is looking to be developed. And I think it's relevant to what is being asked for here. If you consider a quote-unquote typical development done by a developer, done for a profit, then obviously the more units you could squeeze into a project, the more profit you can make. In this case, because the structure is different, it's not being done as a standard for-profit development. The more units there are means the more owners there will be. And so the profit in that sense is not going to the original or developing owners, but is being spread out. And in this case specifically, as was presented last week, the reason for the number of units being proposed is specifically so that some of those units could be supported by the others, be subsidized to have them fall within the range of affordable or workforce housing. And that's a very different perspective. Other comments that have been made regarding the project as a whole is that it's too big, that it will change the character of the town, that there will be too much traffic, and things of that type and in that vein. And when I tried to step back and take a look at what's happened with development in the town of Lyme, at least over the past 20, 25 years, those facts, while they have been raised up in many instances in developments both residential and commercial or mixed, haven't really proven true. If you go and take a look at things of size, and again, it bridges from residential to commercial, from in zoning to pre-zoning, but whether it's a commercial building or a residential complex, what we're talking about for size, for impact, is how big the buildings are, where they're located, how visible they are, etc. And yet we have examples around us that have shown that things where these concerns have been raised have really not created that kind of impact. Most recent, I don't know all the examples, the most recent one that I know of was the discussions surrounding the development of Stella's restaurant and how that was going to change the character of the village. And we didn't see that happen when they abided by the conditions set before them. I remember quite some time before that, the development of Green Mountain Studios was going to be a large industrial complex and what that was going to do to the character of the town and the traffic involved. And we haven't seen impacts from there. The closest project, if you want to call it that is of any scope to what's being proposed for Pinnacle is actually one you're kind of familiar with, the Dartmouth College Highway. And that indeed came up in the presentation to the planning board when I frankly was the one who asked, do we know how many units there are in there? And nobody did. And the person who expressed the greatest concern about the visibility of the Pinnacle project made a comment to the effect of, well, you only see 2 buildings. So I don't know what's behind that. One of the interesting facts is that all of the residential portion of the Dartmouth College Highway project is closer to Route 10 than even the closest Pinnacle project buildings will be. And I think what's going to happen is that impact is going to, over time, basically be the same. People will drive by, they'll not know what they're passing. They won't see it in their face, and in a few years' time, somebody's going to say, yeah, I know there's a Pinnacle project up there, but I haven't driven in, so I don't know how much is there. From a traffic impact standpoint, I also know that some people have said, well, that's south of town. So, you know, it really doesn't have the traffic impact by having what I've since discovered is 22 residential units in it. So Monday morning I sat across from the entrance to Crossroads Academy, because don't forget there's a school of 180 students, plus staff also on that location, to see what the traffic flow was like. And from 7 in the morning until 8:15, leading up to the start of school, 45% of the traffic came from the north, which means it had to come through the village. Another interesting thought came through my mind as I was sitting there, which is one of the things that's very recently happened is we went through a process where there was a proposal for Mill Gardens to develop a site a little further south of that. And that didn't happen. What ended up happening? They built north of town, just over the Orford line, So we get their traffic, but we don't get the benefits. They're not on our tax rolls. That goes to Orford. So it gives one pause as to how the effects of development, have been done for good or ill in the long term. Basically, the final example that I would want to put out would be to ask you to envision that instead of us being here tonight, there was another group of people with a special development project who were looking for certain conditions, exceptions, and variances because they just purchased 400 acres at the end of Canaan Turnpike and wanted to put a skiway there. I mean, can you imagine under today's environment and conditions what the hue and cry would be of the change of the character of the town, of the bottlenecks in the village, by having a skiway out Dorchester Road where 95% of that traffic has to come right through town? Now, that was done in 1963, prior to zoning. But at any time since then, have we had issues of traffic?
Ever tried to drive down Franklin Hill Road?
I have.
At certain times of day?
At certain times, 2 weeks ago, I'm one of the people most impacted. When I come out Market Street to come to the village, I have to stop. 2 weeks ago, I happened to do that at 4:15. 3 cars were coming down the hill at the end of Dorchester Road, and I waited 15 seconds for them to pass. I tell you, it was an amazing impact. But those are the examples of quote-unquote large types of development. And have they changed the fundamental character of town? They haven't. I think it speaks to the fact that there is capacity here for us to be something other than a village of white clapboard houses. I went through and did some further research regarding what has been built in town, going back over the last 25 permits for new homes, and we will get into some of the details of that discussion. But one of the facts that is not on the slide that you'll see later is that of all those projects that have been put together, the least expensive one in terms of its appraised value, the least expensive of all 25 is $426,300 of appraised value for the project. Everything is above that, and the most expensive one over these past 25 units had a appraised value of $1,997,000. We'll get into some more of the details and comparisons of that later on, but one of the things that's a different factor of the Pinnacle project is its focus, design, and desire to create a level of affordable housing that does not exist in this town and hasn't existed in this town, at least in my memory, and that goes back 35 years plus. So I think those are one of the factors that is there. A couple of other things that were put out that I do think need to have clarification, better information on very briefly, was again a comment made at the last meeting wondering what this co-housing group was. Was it some kind of a cult? Or might it be one of these cases where all of a sudden there's a project that just got started and then got abandoned and fell apart and fell by the wayside, leaving the town with something that would be a drag upon its property values, etc. Very quickly, for those who don't know the term, co-housing is basically termed as a development of an intentional community, designed and built around the principles of sustainability and in the largest sense of the word, environmental, social, and economic sustainability are the key objectives. Co-housing can be owned and operated as a cooperative or a condominium, and is usually designed around clustered multifamily housing. The benefits of clustering we have laid out before you, but most importantly, the deliberate part of this design is also to foster human interaction, not just a group of apartments with strangers living next to each other. What's vital, I think, to understand is that the Pinnacle project, like other co-housing projects, at least within the scope of what we can research in New England, will not proceed until there is a critical mass of ownership in each phase of the project, which has led to an incredibly high success rate for projects once the building phase starts. There have been lots of communities that have proposed co-housing developments that have never put a spade into the ground. But in every example we can find where they have finally gone through the process successfully, not a single one of them has failed. Not one. So that speaks to the fact that it is, again, a different type of development that does not leave the town open to the risk of abandoned property, abandoned buildings. The last thing that I guess I would speak to at this point is that it also came up in the prior meeting as to where the judgment might lie in terms of looking at this project. Frank, as you so rightfully say, it's a large and complex one that needs thoughtful deliberation and hard work on everybody's part. And I think that that is exactly right. I've lived in this town and built my house in this town prior to zoning when there weren't issues surrounding it. I was here for the debates of instituting zoning and what it was hopefully meant to do in terms of helping to guide the development of the community. I think one of the things that people have to remember is when we voted for that to exist, we voted in a set of ordinances, but we also provided a mechanism for those ordinances to be judged and interpreted on a case-by-case basis by the zoning board. To be the human element to what otherwise are static ordinances and conditions that don't fit every case and circumstance. Whether it's an individual specific property or whether it's a concept that over time has come into play and come into being in one respect in advance of the ordinances that are there. I believe that's why we have a zoning board. And I believe that it is left to the zoning board to have the discretion and to have the authority to determine a good project from a bad project. So I don't think, frankly, the approval or disapproval of Pinnacle is going to set a precedent that would either completely inhibit any development in town or lead to a string of large apartment buildings running up and down Route 10. You will be looking at and you'll be judging this project on all of its own merits and in its unique circumstances. And I think that's the right and proper thing. And I, for one, believe that you are the folks who've got the ability, skills, and judgments to do that. With that, I'll go to Rich.
So I had actually planned on saying some of the things that you just said very eloquently. So I'm gonna,
Then don't
in the interest
repeat
of
them.
time, I'm not gonna say it.
Good.
So, Stu,
Thanks.
would you be ready to talk about the Sure, lights. Okay.
Camera,
Now,
action.
I
So
hope
do
this does
people
not
know
hit you in the eye.
Stu?
I'm going to move.
Okay.
It's very simple.
Actually,
Because I don't know if Stu was
I
introduced
want to see
before.
it.
I was here at the last
He was,
meeting.
it was, okay.
So just,
So did you want to sit down, Stu? or you want-
sure.
Frank, you want
Oh,
full
and
list
you
of
brought the laser pointer.
Watch.
It's the top button is the laser pointer if you
We
want.
can't turn more lights on. I think we'll probably watch some.
Oh, okay.
Ah, a little one.
That's
That's
it.
good.
That's
Okay.
Okay.
My name is Stuart White. I'm an architect, and I was here at the last meeting. So, kind of picking up where we left off the last time, this is to remind you all of.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Before we go much further.
Yeah,
Is all of this contained in this
Yes.
ring binder?
yes.
Yes.
In which case I don't need the light to take notes.
Right.
That was my problem.
The slides are in there, okay.
So this is the view from,
Correction. These slides are between your old binder and your new binder,
Combined.
combined.
All right, that's fine.
without dividers.
No, with the butters now.
So,
Divided your computer.
so just to locate us, here is Route 10, Post Pond. The lodge is right here. And this is our area of development. Yes.
There you go. Yep.
And zooming in a little bit, I just wanted to talk a little bit more. We saw this slide last time, but didn't get a chance to explain it much. But the site is very rolling topography. It's not actually the typical ideal developer site. It's going to take a lot of work. There's a The most buildable part is over here, and that's where you see a tennis court. And this is a wetlands buffer, and the other wetlands buffer is like this, so we have sort of a narrowing place where we can build. The interesting thing is that from here, this is a low point. It goes all the way up to here. There's a knoll up here, a ridge, and it's east-west, which is nice for us. And then it drops off quite sharply right in here. So the buildings are two smaller buildings down here, two smaller buildings up here. They're 4- and 5-unit buildings. This is an 11-unit building. This is a 7-unit building. And this building, which is really kind of the heart of the concept, is the common house. And it's kind of key how it relates to everything else on the site. But you can see how basically there are a lot of interconnected units. There are no single-family buildings, which is the way some of the other common house, projects that co-housing projects that I've seen. This has really, I think, one of the more energy efficient co-housing projects, because there's a lot of interconnected buildings here, so the heat loss isn't out 6 sides. It's you share party walls, and it will be very efficient and also more economical to build that way.
Have a question about this?
Yes.
This area that runs from here, there, is that 4 acres?
I think it's less than 4, but maybe some.
It's
3 acres?
between 3 and 4?
Probably.
Yeah.
We would want that dimension.
Okay.
And secondly, this is all egg soil.
Yes, it is.
Later on, we have an agricultural soils overlay map that we can.
Yeah, I've seen some of the overlays, I just wanted to picture it with the
With the
construction in
houses,
there.
So last time, I'm going to zoom in again, looking right at the common house, which, as I said, is really kind of the heart of the concept, because the just to the right is the 7-unit building, and it's connected to the common house by a bridge here that the 2 upper levels of crest can come over to the common house. And the idea in this concept is that some of these units are not as large as you might find in other places, but the common house has amenities that everybody shares in. So you might be willing, for example, to give up a smaller kitchen because there's a big kitchen and a shared dining room in this common house.
What do you expect your frequency of use of the big kitchen to be?
I would say
Nightly meals?
We plan to offer 1 meal a day. You don't have to take it, but it will be offered every day, both to support people with young children and to support elderly people who aren't cooking on their own.
So who would be cooking those meals?
There are different models, but there's a 2-hour-a-week work requirement, something like that. So many of us look forward to cooking once a week with 2 or 3 other people, and there may also be 1 staff person to help
Would
keep
that
us
requirement
organized.
apply to workforce housing?
Say again?
Would that requirement apply to workforce housing?
Any condominium can have that sort of requirement, and so that has been done in other areas. And so we anticipate that people who wanted to live there would be people who both qualified for workforce housing financially and were interested in the cooperative concept.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question too, that bridge, the connector between those buildings. Why doesn't it extend down to the ground floor?
Well,
Why is it only 2nd and 3rd floors?
I think one of the reasons is that it's a very long building, and we want to bring people up. This is sort of the arrival place here. This is the center of the complex.
Hmm.
And to be able to get through, there's a children's, toddlers room in here, so you could come right through here and go in that way. And it provides a level of interest, and you walk through the light here out to the south side. The other thing I meant to say is that because we have this east-west bridge, it aligns perfectly with what we're trying to do. All the units are facing south for passive solar, so. Anyway, that's the principal reason for a bridge and not for a solid wall there.
So, I'm still trying to understand. I mean, it seems to me that if you put the bridge in to facilitate people getting from one building to the other, particularly during bad weather in winter,
Mm-hmm.
why do you force them to go up to the second or third floor in order to make that trip?
Well, I think I'll go to the next slide.
Okay.
Maybe that will help. But it's true, you will have to go out from that one unit.
Well, you could go across outside, right?
Yes, you're undercover.
But you can also take the elevator inside to get to the different levels.
That's the question, I think.
Right.
Next.
Yes, there is an elevator, so.
In-
So this one you saw last time, just to remind you, but this is the end of the common house. This is the level that has the prime view, looks out over the whole area and down to Post Pond. And here's a plan and section. The plan happens to be of the dining room. And this is this section here. This is the opening at the bridge. These are the two upper levels. There's just one unit down here. The majority of the units are on the second and third floors, and they are at grade up here, and the grade falls away. So if you're on this level, you're coming in, and you can see the grade is dropping down, and you're at this point, you're elevated, and up here is the dining room. And so that's and it's a two-story timber frame space. This is a larger view, trying to give you some idea of what goes on in here. It's designed from toddlers to seniors and everything in between. And here's the bridge again, people coming across. This is the dining space, an outdoor screened-in porch for summer dining, a view to the pond here. And then at this level, this is at grade here. This is the toddler's room. Downstairs, there's teens and an exercise room. There's a lot going on in here. And the key to this is to be successful is that this is the prime location on the site. We want to draw people in to use this building all day long. And it'll have a lot of amenities that we feel that people who are willing to have a somewhat smaller unit to be connected to the common house.
Does this imply that in order to really make this functional, this building has to have staff?
That's not the case in any of the, I know of, I built a co-housing project in Peterborough, which has.
I know the principals very well.
Yeah, so there's generally not staff associated with these.
Does that building in Peterborough have the same functions as this building?
It's slightly smaller, but quite consistent with this. There's some multi-purpose spaces, there's hangout spaces for the teenagers, there's a toddler space, and then there's the larger dining hall space as well. And then in the lowest level, they have shop and some other space.
Mm-hmm.
So fairly similar.
But I think that's a prime feature of this layout is the accessibility for the units that are up here. As I said before, there's just one down here. Is there one or two?
I think just one.
Just one. And, so, yes, you have to go outside there, but, it's under cover.
Is this then intended to be a place where a senior who might begin to qualify for assisted living could still live with some help from neighbors and friends?
Liz, you want
Yes.
to talk to that?
It's designed to try and be able to build a place that is your home that you can age in. This is your community where you can age. We've talked to people who provide home health care services in
Yeah.
people's homes, and they say this is ideal.
Yeah.
So it's a different model, but it's gaining an acceptance across the country. Let's see,
Next
is that,
slide.
I think that's
is that
pretty
the last
much-
one?
Yeah, that's all under
Is there any other questions on these drawings?
One quick question, just from a logistics standpoint. Do you see the center building here as being a central heating plant, or would you have individual heating plants per building?
Michael, you want to?
Yeah, in this case, we haven't made that
Haven't gone
determination
that
yet.
far yet.
One strong consideration is a central biomass heating plant with forced hot water to the buildings, which is what we did at Nuganusett and what exists at Cobb Hill co-housing. Our goal with this project is actually to take the envelope to an even higher level where the heating needs will be less, and and plus the site is pretty well set up for PV, so we're also considering heat pumps.
Yeah.
Air-to-air heat pumps.
Area heat pumps, yeah.
Yep.
Good. Okay, well, thank you, Stephen.
So I think in the interest of time, we should go to Brian. There's.
Yeah, we don't have that much
Yeah,
time
right.
left tonight.
So in the materials, there's some, I guess the one thing we should say, we've given background on zoning, because you
Oh, you
asked
didn't have
what
more
happened
slides?
about zoning. Yeah,
Yes,
you've got slides.
We
so-
can do a little.
But Simon had an independent perspective on zoning, and I don't know, at some point it would be helpful for you to, because we can't pretend to be objective. Honest, we think, but.
You're
so
talking
I don't
about the
know what-
rezoning
The
attempt.
rezoning attempt.
We
so
have
I
an
don't know.
analysis in your notebook,
Yeah,
so we don't have to.
so we don't have to do that, but
Right.
Simon is. the
Let
one who
me
can talk
cut
about
to the
that.
chase for a moment here.
Yeah.
We have 10 minutes, I'm willing to go 10 minutes extra, but that's not going to get us very far. We have a very complex set of things to read over, contemplate. Given the circumstances of the site, we must make a site visit to it. I can either ask the board to briefly go into deliberation to develop, or keep it just open in public, to say how we want to proceed next. And the question I have to the board is, should we consider having a
Is that too bright?
special,
Okay.
a non-monthly meeting for this, to try and get one session devoted to your needs? And how do you feel about that? We need a full quorum to do it.
2 meetings every month.
Yeah,
What you say.
until we can deal with
Sorry,
this.
get somewhere.
I think we're gonna have to, or are we gonna be here?
Well, it's
Come
Forever.
December.
Yeah, and I think it's not fair to the
It's
applicant
not,
to do
I agree.
anything else.
I would agree.
Frank? Can I
Yes.
just interject? At the moment, I am working on an additional 3 applications for next month.
My joy is well
So-
bounded.
We'll give you a little more perspective
The
on that.
economy is rebounding. We've
Can we
had
make a
that kind of
suggestion?
business in
Close
the
your
past.
office.
Now, there's a suggestion.
You know that large rabid bear you were noticing?
So, Francois, in
Yeah,
answer to your
Monsieur.
question, I think it's necessary. It's not
I agree.
certainly my first choice.
But
I would agree.
I think that there's no way we can be fair to you all, because we've got to do this in a way where we're not trying to do 3 other things at once, because we're never going to get anywhere. I see us as having a minimum of 2 more meetings to discuss before we even get to forming an opinion. The opinion in this case is going to be complex. It's not going to be written the night of the hearing. And in fairness to everybody. And I mentioned this in passing to Bobby, but I do appreciate very much the comprehensive nature of the materials you've given us, including relevant case law, so that the board can be cognizant of all of the issues. And so I'd like to ask very specifically one question now. Do you, this is a Bobby question really, do you consider this a workforce housing application?
The statements with it because of the percentage, yes, of workforce
Okay.
housing.
So that means, if we read some of the case law involved, that we should probably have, as part of our available materials, expert testimony as to the standing and status of workforce housing in Lyme, so that we have a third-party independent statement of this. That's the only way I can conceive of it being fair to all parties. And so that, you probably have in your head better than I do, but this came up in one of the 2 cases where it was a builder's remedy,
Right,
and it's the second,
the Sun,
yes,
the Sun Coast,
Suncoast.
yeah.
So I think it will be of assistance to all parties to do that. And so that, David, I think that we need to get together with town council and arrange for such a expert opinion to be developed. That I think is going to be mandatory.
I would agree.
I really want this to be as utterly transparent and as totally fair to all parties as we can possibly be.
And as a caveat to that, the number of units is linked to supporting the workforce component because
I understand that.
To subsidize.
to subsidize them, to
That's
get
right.
the range that we need to fit in the
Yep.
numbers, which were just revised again for 2015. Without those workforce pieces, if there were not pieces in the workforce, there'd still be a range of pricing. But we may have fewer units needed because we aren't subsidizing those workforce units. So there's some flexibility in the proposal.
Okay, so we have a few more minutes. If it's okay with members of the board, I'm perfectly happy to go ahead with your presentation. Alan?
I ran across a wrinkle that may affect the application that we've got in front of us, and that is in 464 special exceptions for agricultural soil conservation district. It says development.
Watch your eyes for a second, folks.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, it's bright, but I can see good share of it with just that one bulb on, so.
That's the way I designed it.
Yeah, appreciate genius. However, it then talks about if the lot is being subdivided or has been subdivided within the last
Yes.
10 years, there is an issue here because there was a subdivision between this and 422 as opposed to 422.1, which is what we're discussing now. That we want 40, it's lot map number 40, whatever the map number is, and it's lot number 22, and then it's lot number 22.1 for what we're talking about here. And if we need to back up in order to meet the provisions of the ordinance, we need the information for the other side.
We heard that
It's provided.
at the last meeting.
Yeah, okay.
You got it.
We did bring that up.
Brian's got this.
Okay.
So we can
Very good.
review that at our leisure.
Yeah.
Before we adjourn, I'll let you go ahead. But before we adjourn, I do want to set a schedule for
Right.
the next potential meeting so that we can keep this moving forward in an orderly manner. Please proceed.
Okay, great 4 slides, Brian, so you just click through those.
Perfect.
Do you want to see on it, or do you want the lights left?
We have this in our binders.
You do?
Yeah, we do.
Yes. So at the last meeting, there were some questions about the plans. I tried to take good notes and tried to address these concerns. And what I did is I revised some of the plans that you'd already seen, and I added some new plans to try to address all the concerns, so.
And we have these new ones, right, Frank?
Yeah.
Yep, they're in your binder, and the ones in the binder are a little bit off scale. I do have some more sets that are 11 by 17, and I do have some full-size plans that I can leave with you guys as well.
Yeah, please leave those as
I'm
basic.
responsible for the off-scale.
He's fine.
So the first plan, this is a overview plan that shows the entire parent tract, which basically originally it was kind of cut off, that it kind of just held the lodge lot off to the side because it was, you know, a separate lot. But what I did is I added this. So this is the lodge lot with the cabins up here. The lot line kind of runs down through here. So this kind of gives you just an overview. I added some additional information to this plan. One of the questions was about the slope in the back. I think the contours they're from USGS, so they're not kind of normal scale contours. So I did add some contour labels in the back, which should help you determine the slope. But I did just a sample between two contour lines that shows that this part right here is about 25%. It does flatten out in different areas, so there are some areas in the back that are steep, that are shallower than 20% that don't qualify for the steep slope districts. But so I did add that on there if you want to take a look at that. The other thing that I did add is I added the proposed septic system that was approved for the lodge and the cabins. That's right here. And then this is the proposed septic system for the co-housing. And I added a dimension between the two, which is 438 feet between the two. And so they do have the nitrate setbacks. They don't overlap. So
Are those denitrifying systems?
they're not.
No.
Nope. They're located far enough away from the property lines that they meet the nitrate setbacks required for DES. This one is the preliminary overview plan, which basically there's some building dimensions that are shown on this plan that was asked about, and I added some dimensions from the buildings to the side property lines. So there's some additional dimensions just so you can kind of see how far away everything is.
Do you want to flash that?
Actually, no, I actually have one.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, I forgot that this does everything. The next one is the grading plan, which also this kind of just shows a little bit of a blow up to show you the dimensions from the building corners to the property lines. So there's some dimensions there. This also shows dimensions of the building itself, which I believe some of the architectural plans might have some dimensions on it as well, but this kind of just gives some overall dimensions, give you at least a feel of the size of it. This plan is the agricultural soils overlay. We were asked to split out the maps before we had kind of all the overlays on one map. This was split it out. So this basically just shows the agricultural soils. So in green, there's a legend over here. So in green are the sorry. Those are the local class agricultural, and the pink are the state class. So it's kind of hard to see on this projector, but the printed plans, you should be able to see these a little better. So what I did is I added a soil calculation, and this is split out. It has both the lodge lot and the co-housing lot.
And these are Ray Lobdell's soil determinations?
Yep, they are. Yep.
Okay.
And so basically what we have is overall, we have 937,000 square feet of agricultural soils between the two properties, and we're disturbing 93,000 square feet. So we're disturbing 10% of the total agricultural soils, just under 10. The next one, this is just a wetland buffer overlay. The wetlands themselves are shown in dark blue. The buffers are shown in a hatched light blue. So what you can see is we did really try to avoid impacting the wetland buffers by focusing the development in the developable land as far away from the wetlands as possible. As you know, we do have some disturbances to the wetland buffer for the driveway because, as you can see, there's nowhere that we could have got a driveway in without disturbing the wetlands and the wetland buffer. And then there's just some grading for, some of the side slopes will grade slightly into the wetland buffers. The stormwater, we'll have to put that into the wetland buffers, but those are allowed. And then there's the force main that comes up and goes through. I focused it through the center where there is a section that is outside of the wetland buffer. So I did keep the force main as far away as possible. But, you know, with a 100-foot wetland buffer, it's tricky.
8-inch force main?
It'll probably be a 2-inch force main. Maybe 3. We haven't sized the system yet, but it'll most likely be pretty small.
Yeah.
Very. It's a hell of a head calculation.
Oh, I've done similar size ones that I think 3 or 4 for size, you know, developments this size, so maybe 3 or 4 inch.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's beginning to be the numbers believable.
The next one is steep slopes. Again, it's kind of hard to see on the projector, but the steep slopes are shown in like a yellowy kind of green, and mostly they're focused in the back. There are some pockets that are kind of strewn about the lot, but most of them are focused up behind the that last trail up in the back. And there's also has some contour labels added, so you can kind of see the slopes in the back. The next plan is a driveway length exhibit. This was one of the questions that came up about the length of the driveway. So I did add, at key locations, I did add the length of driveway from Orford Road as defined in the ordinance. So up to this point, it is 610 feet to this point right here. It is 1,000 feet to right here. That's where that line is drawn. Down here, it's just under 1,000. It's 915 to this point here, and then up to, let's see.
Yeah, that's what I thought those numbers were close.
Yeah, 1250. I was thinking the driveway. I thought you just meant the driveway to here. I didn't
No, I
realize
meant
you
the
meant.
holes.
Yeah. So up to the last structure, it's 1,250, and then 1,375 to the very last carport, which is the last kind of accessory structure. So we do have to add a request for an additional special exception for the driveway length. One of the features that we are adding is, you know, we're going to work with the fire chief, but there's a loop kind of road that goes in the back that'll help provide access to, you know, for fire equipment to the back of these vehicles, and it also provides a secondary egress in case, say, a tree falls down over the driveway in this area. This will be a secondary egress, so.
Okay, how many more slides you have?
I have one.
Okay.
Traffic. One of the questions that came up was regarding the traffic. We did a trip generation analysis, and the DOT has a criteria that says if a site generates 100 trips per peak hour or less, DOT does not require a detailed traffic study. So what we did is
For their purposes.
For their purposes, exactly, yep. So what we did is we took both the lodge, the co-housing, and all the other uses that are used, you know.
That are on the parent lot.
On the parent lot, exactly, yep, the restaurant and everything. And we are well under the 100 trips per peak hour limit.
Okay.
It's 45, I believe, in the AM peak and 55 in the PM peak. So it would need to almost double the amount of traffic on there to warrant a traffic study from the DOT.
And tab 14 is the traffic letter itself, which is several pages with a lot of data. So these are
Right.
just excerpts from the letter.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, I have a technical question for the board here, and I won't ask to go into deliberation unless board members feel it's necessary. But do we have any reason to request this be reviewed as a development of regional impact?
Strangely enough, I asked myself the same question.
And
These are, as Lyme rep for the Regional Planning Commission on that Regional Planning Committee, this is a standard development that gets referred to the RPC.
that's what I thought might well be the case, so that we should do that as a matter of procedure.
I would think so.
Yeah.
And I think we need to go into deliberation and vote that. So I'd like to hear a very quick motion to go into deliberation.
I'll move.
Second, if anybody? I would like to propose that we request the zoning administrator and other town officials to provide the Regional Planning Commission with the fact that the zoning board, in first deliberation on this proposal, has requested that they make a review for development of regional impact. Does that sound correct, gentlemen?
Yes.
It works.
All in
Part
favor?
of it, is that the way the ordinance is written?
I checked the RSAs, and it looks right to me.
Okay.
In a few moments, we'll have an opportunity for a hand to shoot up and over in the corner here.
Yeah.
But other than that, Dave, should I go out of deliberation, David? Okay. Hearing no other comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so vote, so move. Move, we go out of deliberation.
Second.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
All in favor? Aye. Good.
So you're only interested in notifying the Regional Planning Commission and not other communities?
At the moment,
At
yes.
the
Said
moment,
regional
yes.
planning, yeah.
Yeah, regional planning should be able to take care of that from the standpoint of
If they
other
feel
communities.
Yeah.
I just think that that's another crossing Ts, dotting Is. And it may, quite conceivably, could help the applicants.
I would think it could.
Exactly, so
To help
that's-
us as well.
Yeah, it'll help all parties. Good, okay, not to
I'm good.
deal with these as they
I'm
come
good
up.
unless you have questions.
At this
on-
point, let's decide when we're gonna have another meeting so we can keep this thing moving.
For, specifically for
It's
this.
solely,
For this,
solely,
only this.
solely for,
Right.
solely for.
Right. Okay. And then reserve those Thursdays.
Normal Thursday meetings are reserved for the
Right.
other 27
But,
people who
but
wanna talk to
then
us.
the one 2 weeks later, for instance.
Yeah, no, but I think
gets
this is the only
reserved
way we're gonna do this
for
in
several
fairness to
months.
everybody.
To them.
Point of information, if I
Sir.
could. Since you declared certainly appropriately that a site
Yeah.
visit would be in order, is it appropriate for you, with the greenways, I heard that you felt that with a site visit, you could then continue the session and go to your deliberations right then. Knowing this still is gonna take several, is it
Yeah.
appropriate to think that you would wanna set up a site visit and then possibly adjourn to
I was going to
lock lines?
ask Bill, it's a very good point. I was gonna ask the engineers if they could, once they get a team of huskies,
It's melting, it's melting.
get up into the site
thinking
and
positive.
give us some taping mistakes. So when we have a site visit,
Yeah, right.
we actually get some real sense of what's happening here. Because this is complex enough.
Road
So
center
the
line. building
Greenway
corners.
is very straightforward, we're not in a big area, and we all know you fall downhill.
You're thinking center line and building corners?
At the moment,
That'd be
yes.
great.
Centerline building corners would be fine. I just think, and once you've done that, if you get back to us at the next meeting that we have, we'll then schedule a site visit.
Right.
Does this make sense to everybody involved?
It does to me.
Good, okay. So at this point, I would like to suggest that we try and schedule the next meeting and then go from there.
Excuse me, Frank. Before you end the meeting, may I make a comment?
Yes.
To the zoning board, please? So my name's Kevin Sauer, 15-year resident in Lyme, and I just wanted to voice my opinion on this project. I wanted to know that I do not support the application. I believe the proposal is unreasonable. I don't think that it's, in its both scope and size, I think it's unreasonable. It's not allowed under Lyme zoning ordinances. It doesn't fit with the town master plan. It's too dense. I think Lyme will lose its rural character. March 2013, town of Lyme voted 26 units down, almost by majority. Now they're coming with 36. Once again, I think the proposal is unreasonable in scale and scope. And I'd also ask, well, maybe with Mr. Way's comment with more thinking that more similar developments will not follow. I actually think they will, that your decision will make a precedent on what happens in the town of Lyme. And I'd also ask that all the materials that have been presented tonight be made public record, digitized, and placed in the minutes.
I thought something to that effect myself, in that
The
perhaps
materials
the materials here should be available to the public.
for
whenever the
inspection
town
to the
office-
public
Yeah.
and the
Which they-
zoning administrator's office. I
They
agree
are.
with that completely.
And then the actual physical folders and everything will go into the folders and
Yeah,
file
those
cabinets.
become a matter of record as a matter of course. Bill?
No, we don't have the capacity. for
With all
that.
due respect, I do think we need to keep the facts straight. in reference to the vote that was taken, it was not a vote to directly approve or
It was not.
disapprove this project. It was a vote on zoning ordinances. And so it was a broader issue. Was it centered on this project? That's where a lot of the
What
discussion
was the
lay.
intent of the vote?
One at a time.
But that vote was not to approve or not the Pinnacle project.
Okay,
And
thank
what-
you,
and
Bill.
what-
No,
and
wait a
what-
second.
And what was the intent of the vote?
No, please, at this point, you've made your public comment, and I don't want to have a discussion of those things. The facts are available to all parties, and we can work with them, and they are part of the public record. But I don't want an argument between members of the audience about that. The vote is, what we were voting on was in the warrant, it was clear, it was voted down, and then we are proceeding from there. But that's part of the record.
Could I make a public comment as well? Because it relates to what this fellow said.
Actually, I want to keep this very brief, because we're going to have more meetings, and it's getting late.
Well, I've sat here for an hour and a half.
Well,
Give me
so
3
we
minutes.
sat here for a little bit longer. Is your comment one that can be left till the next meeting?
I just want to put something in the record.
There's the holder of the
Well,
record.
I'd like to give it to you. Before the vote 2 years ago, and I have a question for you. Before the vote 2 years ago, we
I'm
submitted...
sorry, wait a second. I have asked that this meeting end briefly. Please hold your comment till the next meeting.
Thank you very much.
We're running late. This is not the time to bring up things that need further care and discussion. If you wish to add materials that the board can review at its leisure during the intermediate time between meetings, we are delighted to receive them. David, suggested time for,
Anything but Thursdays.
yes, I understand you're saying. your word.
Mainly because the planning board is already
Is all
scheduled
the
here
other-
for
yeah,
the
exactly.
previous and the next Thursday after
Right.
the zoning board meets. So Thursdays are not,
Yeah,
yep, and
Wednesdays,
Wednesdays would be good. Tuesdays I would think is also good.
yeah, Wednesday or Tuesday is fine.
The thing I'll ask is, if you pick a date, let me go check. We have a calendar in the select board.
Oh, yes,
office
the
with-
availability up here, yeah.
Right, with the, and I just want to make sure that,
Okay, just as long as we can inform all parties who are pertinent to this by public notice, we can then schedule it a little bit later, as long as we have some idea of when the next meeting would
well,
be.
we would need to, if you're going to continue, you have to continue to a time and
I
date.
know that's the problem. Do you want to do that now then, Dave?
We can do that, just if you give me a date that you like, I'll go grab the book and, well, actually, let me go grab the book.
Grab
and
the
then we
book.
can-
That's
I'll
better.
tell you.
Okay,
See
so
what
we
you
have a
put.
few more minutes.
Make
Why
sure
don't
what
you
works
now
for you,
make
Bob.
your comment?
Yeah, one of the questions I had for you is, I own property across Post Pond from Loch Lyme. So the property between Loch Lyme and my property is Post Pond, which is owned by the state in effect. Am I in a butter?
I would get advice from council on that.
And if so, I would think that all the other people who own property on Post Pond would be abutters.
If your advice says that, then yes, probably so.
Yeah.
Didn't,
I
we
think we
wrote
are.
a lot off of the shorefront, but not all of it. Is that correct, Bob? The parent parcel still has shorefront, right?
It does.
But
Yeah.
this lot,
No, the parent parcel has no.
Yeah.
that's what I thought. It's been subdivided off, right?
Even
No.
It never did, it was a separate lot.
the pond lot is
It's a separate lot, no, it's a separate entity.
It's a separate entity, so
No,
the
so
answer is,
it-
But
The answer
this
would be no.
property
The answer is
doesn't
not in the
survive the
property.
pond.
No.
You may wish to satisfy yourself on that matter, but thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
That, my understanding of that is no.
So the proposal in front of you is for totally landlocked piece of property, as it were.
Well, it doesn't abut the pond. It's
Road
on Route 10.
Yeah,
It's
it's
bounded
road
by
frontage,
Route
not
10.
on the pond, correct.
And across Route 10 is property owned, across from it are property owned by others.
Thank you.
David?
Looks like Wednesdays are going to be the better, there's a lot of other committees that are meeting in here on Tuesdays.
Okay.
Except
So
Wednesday
I'm
the first.
perfectly content to
Wednesday
say
works.
Wednesday a
We'll
week.
stay there, stay with us.
I said except Wednesday the 1st. I
Yes.
must be in Portsmouth.
Okay, which is Wednesday a
It's
week,
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now,
Yeah.
yes.
April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
April Fool's, what is
It's
it?
one month. The
So,
25th is next Wednesday.
is the 25th an acceptable time for you, gentlemen?
I will be absent to the 15th.
And I'm actually, sorry, but the 25th is already, this is the one Wednesday that is,
Also,
So we're
so-
looking at the 8th then.
The which?
8th?
8th?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. 8th of,
You're going the 8th,
I'll be gone to the 15th.
and I'm going the 8th.
Okay.
mm,
We're making progress rapidly here.
next,
Is 15th.
How about April 16th?
yeah.
That's a Thursday.
No, that's your
that's the
meeting.
next regular meeting of the zoning board.
No, I really want to, if the 15th can't do it,
Are you back the 15th?
I'll be back.
You can make a meeting the 15th, but you're not here, Walt?
No, I'm
Why
Let's
can't we
do
do
the
it the 15th?
There's no reason.
We can just spend the night and start the next meeting.
Yeah, right. Sleeping bags and all, right.
Well, they've got a regular meeting
So,
on the
what is
16th.
it, the
Right.
16th? Yeah,
15th.
We're meeting the 15th and the
That's bad.
16th.
Yeah.
That's okay, Bobby.
Pinnacle Project's the 15th, regular meeting's the
Yeah,
16th.
I want to make very sure we keep this moving forward. And then at that point, I think we could try and schedule a site visit quite quickly thereafter.
That's what I was wondering, if paying attention to people's schedules, is it worth trying to think about that now?
Well, that's what I was gonna say, Dave, as we move ahead, what's 2 weeks from the 15th?
29th.
Who's here?
No one, well, no one, no one.
Okay, I like how you're thinking.
The room is free.
Are we all
It might be light
here?
enough for a site visit.
The 29th? So let's schedule the 29th too, just
Yeah,
tentatively.
let's do that.
Go out so we're not,
And 7:30?
7:30.
Is it worth doing it earlier for light?
Are you, are you talking about a site visit now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No,
He's
because
gotta do
we
the-
basically have to get back from these guys, we
Right.
staked it,
Correct.
and then go from there. Now, if we get earlier data,
we move it up.
if we're not violating 17 laws, we could then try to set up a meeting and then notice it properly, and then inform all interested parties. And I'm perfectly willing to do that. Because if we could find an intermediate time or right after the next meeting, like Friday morning or Saturday morning thereafter. I would think that meeting could be reasonably informal. If, basically, we're walking up a hill and looking at the state sites, et cetera, but I wouldn't I wouldn't think it an appropriate time to go into deliberation.
Right, I think, and I haven't checked this in a while, but I think you can have a site meeting properly noticed without,
Yeah. Okay?
So I make a motion that we adjourn to the,
Continue
I don't care what we
this
do, we're
hearing.
doing something on the 15th, which is appropriate. The IRS would certainly appreciate us meeting.
Yeah, it's something, yes. Okay, second on that
Second.
motion?
Aye, second.
In favor, aye?
And do you want to schedule the 29th or?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Did you say 29th or 8th?
29th.
And, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
They just wanted to-
Second, in favor?
Aye.
Good.
15th.